Okay, so thank you so much for joining us for student engagement session. I'm really excited about this one. We've worked really hard on just bringing some great information on student engagement to you. Couple of reminders for housekeeping. Make sure you're registered on Frontline for Act 48 credits. At the end of the meeting, we will take the attendance and our secretary will go through to account for time and everything for those Act 48 credits that will be handed out in May. And then this session is being recorded, so it will be uploaded on YouTube and the Padlet for later viewing. And then make sure you stay until the end to complete a survey, ask questions, and be entered for a prize. Well, it's not this month, it's May. All right, a couple of objectives we have for today. The first one, define active engagement and review the best practices. Objective number 2 is define opportunities to respond and discuss the importance. And then objective number 3 is to explore a variety of strategies to increase student engagement during lessons. First of all, we're going to start with defining active engagement. So what exactly is it? Defined, it is the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion that students show when learning and being taught. So this goes beyond passive listening. You know, if you're just getting up and you're giving like a lecture style, that would be their students are passively listening. But active engagement encourages students to actively participate in the learning process by doing. When we are actively engaged, or when our students are actively engaged, it can improve their comprehension and retention, develop those critical thinking skills, enhance student motivation, and then deepen student understanding. So if you think about times where you were in, a class and it's like, oh my gosh, like I remember whenever we got up and we had to go to the four corners or we had to go to read the room and I got to be with Jason at this station or Chloe at this station. It helps us to remember those things associated with the tasks whenever we are engaging purposely in the content. We're going to take one little moment and watch this video. I hope this comes up on your end. So if not,
In
let me know.
1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice
My music has come up. I'm so sorry. Could you all hear that?
President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics.
Okay, so sorry about the interruption. You heard that. It was probably as confusing to you as it was to me. I was like, oh man. All right, so based upon that, I just want you to answer this question for me. What behaviors did you observe in that class of Ben Stein giving his little lecture? What behaviors did you notice from the students? Okay, so there are, oops. Okay, so as you could tell in there, students were, oh, you guys, students were disengaged, not paying attention. We saw lots of different behaviors from those students in there. And we're going to kind of look over here. The teacher, for one, if we're looking at the teacher and how that content is being presented, would you say it's super engaging lesson? The students are really focused on what's happening. They're taking in that information. Probably not, and especially from your responses too. But the teacher, monotone, speaking in a very flat way. His face is expressionless. The talking is just so slow, so it's really hard for them to be engaged with the content that he's presenting. He goes from one thing to the next really quickly, so there's not enough wait time for those students in there. He's just moving along so quickly. Like we said before, lecture style. So this is passive listening for the students. Are they really taking in the content? Are they really understanding what is being taught there? And then he's making these general comments to the class. He's not specific with anybody. He's just continuing on with the content that he is covering. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
You're good. Thanks for joining us.
Uh-huh.
And then the behaviors that were observed by the students, as some of you said, some of those blank stares, looks of confusion. There's students that are just kind of like looking up at the ceiling or the wall. That one girl has like the eye twitches. That one always gets to me. She's got like this eye twitches. Someone else is drooling in the class, blowing bubbles. All of those things are signs. Those are observable behaviors that we can see from the class to really say like, ooh, these students are not engaged. How can I change what I'm doing to make this content more exciting? Something to think about, best practices for student engagement. Something to remember is learning is not a spectator sport. We aren't going to get better at something because we're watching it or because we're listening to it. When we're trying to engage our students, when our students are engaging in the content we're teaching, it's more likely that they're going to retain that information like we mentioned. So what are some things we can do in the classroom? Let's anticipate what some of those distracting elements could be. Let's anticipate what the criteria would be for them to be engaged. Let's remove some of those negatively impacting items or things in the area that could impact the attention. Let's teach those behavioral expectations. I know we kind of go back to this every time and we're talking about the importance of teaching the expectations. Absolutely, we need to make sure we are teaching the students what the expectations are for the activity we're doing, make sure we're showing them what to do, and then give them opportunities to practice those, what our expectations are. I always say, rules make things fun, right? I mean, maybe not, but I think like whenever there's structure in place, when they know what to expect, then they know how to best engage. And things don't come as a surprise to them. We can help students feel as though they belong and are connected to their classroom community. One other thing that we go back to quite a lot is really talking about the rapport and the relationship within the classroom. And you might be thinking like, well, how does this impact engagement? Here, I'm going to tell you why. Because when we develop our relationships with students and foster the relationships between students and their peers, it really creates that atmosphere, that community of support within the classroom setting. So if you're thinking about, if you go into maybe like a group setting and you don't really know anybody, you might, if you're like me, you might be a little bit less likely to really share your thoughts, your feelings, like, and be thinking like, I don't know what they're going to think about me if I say this, or I don't know if what I'm saying is relevant to the conversation or how this is going to be perceived. But whenever we come together in a community, maybe with a group of friends, you're out and you're laughing and you're like, oh, I don't really care what I say because they're going to accept me anyways. When we create that community, we allow students to feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to share their thoughts and feelings. With student engagement, if we're offering choices for them, we give them a little bit of autonomy. That provides the engagement whenever they know like, oh, this is something I really want to do, then it can increase the engagement for them as well. It can really generate an excitement for their learning. It embraces their learning and their failures. They can learn from those things and they would feel comfortable with that and picking themselves back up, and we're just going to move right along. And like we said, incorporating student interests as well. That's really important. I know I was just completing something for a student, and just through observation, I noticed like this kid, he really liked Legos. He really liked Pokemon. And I was like, oh, this would be a really great thing to incorporate into this like token economy chart that we're doing. So it gets them engaged just by incorporating a little bit of interest. So delivery of instruction to gain and maintain student attention. So really some kind of signal that you're using in your classroom. Someone put in the chat, are you using a signal in your classroom? Yes or no? If you are, like, what are you doing? Like we have this like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, some sort of callback like that. Eliciting a student response is the most important key to maintaining student attention. So whenever we're able to engage them in something, get them to respond, we know that they're paying attention. They're engaged in there. So I'll check the chat if you guys are responding in there. Use a perky pace. If anyone's familiar with Anita Archer, she talks about using a perky pace. So you don't want to be too slow like Ben Stein was in the video, but you also don't want to be speaking too quickly where students aren't able to pick up and comprehend what you're saying. Maintain close proximity. So this kind of goes with our active supervision, just making sure that we are actively supervising our students, maybe just moving a little bit closer from time to time, really can get students back on task and back engaged with the content. Providing contact with the students, some of those like nonverbal signals are really helpful for our students. Eye contact, maybe a wink, thumbs up, high five, any of those kinds of things. Just to connect with the students, just make sure like, oh my gosh, like I love so much, Rebecca, how you responded to this chat. You have a couple different signals that you're using in your classroom to maybe one of these callbacks that we have up here. And I do have these in the Padlet also. I have a link to that for you. You can add some delight and humor. I think humor can go a really long way with the students depending on who it is you're working with. Just being careful with that to not be sarcastic. Sometimes that can kind of come off as being mean. I think we talked about that maybe in our last session. Just being careful with that. And you as the instructor can be the exciting presence in the room that really gets students excited about whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, opportunities to respond. So with our active engagement and getting our students to respond to us, we want to provide them with multiple opportunities to respond to whatever it is that we are presenting to them. So it would be, I'm talking a little bit, they're talking a little bit, I'm talking a little bit, and they're talking a little bit. So we want to have that, that engagement with the students so they're getting back to us in some manner. This really ensures learning for the students and increases the number of opportunities that students would have to engage with the lesson. So as we said before, the opportunities to respond results in that increased academic achievement because they're having the ability to participate, increased on-task behavior, and then decreased behavioral challenges. We all know that if we don't have something for the kids to do, they're going to find something to do, and it probably isn't going to be the best thing to do. So we have to be proactive in this and think ahead in what we're going to do. Robert Marzano had a great quote, and he said, students in highly engaging classrooms outperform their peers by an average of almost 30 percentile points. That's really wild when we think about it. As to how much, if we're incorporating some of these opportunities to respond, if we could see that much growth within the students that we're servicing. So there's lots of different opportunities to respond that we're going to talk about on here. Some of these maybe you've used, some of these maybe you haven't, but I'm hoping that through some of this conversation, you can take like one thing or maybe two things and say like, I'm going to try that. That would be easy enough to do. So individual opportunities to respond would be where each student would be able to respond at the same time. You know, if we have a lesson and we're saying, okay, I'm looking for a friend with a quiet hand, and, you know, this friend raises a quiet hand, one friend is responding, one student is responding. So the rest of the students are maybe not actively engaged, but if we give everyone the opportunity to respond, then we're getting that instant feedback also. And we can say, oh, okay, I noticed there are 4 students who are understanding this content, but I have 6 that are not. Okay, maybe I need to rework what I'm doing, provide some additional opportunities to practice, maybe review it again. So it gives us as much feedback too. We could have response cards for our students. These could be pre-printed. These could be things with choices on the side, maybe for some of those younger learners, yes or no, true and false, odd or even. For some of those older students, you could certainly modify that. They could write their own on there, if you're, whatever you're practicing, if you're, practicing adjectives and adverbs, or, nouns and verbs, whatever that is, just for them to give you some feedback in the moment. Some signaling or movement activities, thumbs up, thumbs down, super easy way to get all the students to engage with you. Maybe it's a stand up and a sit down. If you're brave, if you have really good structure in your classroom and you can kind of like corral the students back in, you could do your four corners, moving to a certain corner, the front or the back of the classroom. You could have your fist to 5, if anyone's heard of that. So give me a 5 if you understand, a 4 if you're still struggling, a 3, 2 and a 1, and so on and so forth. But just to kind of get some feedback from the students of how they're feeling about the content, if they're understanding it. Maybe some gestures, connecting. We're doing like a connection kind of thing. Maybe you do that if you have a morning meeting, you're making connections. Maybe it's some sort of clapping or snapping. Those older students, you could have some guided notes that you're using for them. Maybe they're filling in the blanks. Or even at the end, I was actually in a classroom not too long ago, and this teacher gave exit tickets, and they weren't paper tickets, they were verbal tickets. And it was really like, tell me something you learned about math today. What was something new you learned about, whatever the content was? And each student had to respond to that before they were able to go on to the next activity. Any of those you use? Yes, no, in there? You can put it in the chat. If you're noticing, I'm giving you some opportunities to respond. Okay, well, while you're doing that, I'm going to continue on. We also have some group opportunities to respond. So we have those choral responses, of course, as we'd use, where all students can answer in unison. Oh, good, Rebecca. Okay, the exit tickets, those are great. Are you using those in your classroom? Like they just have to write on something? Yeah, fist to 5. Good. Yeah, and the whiteboards. Yeah, all of those things are so great. And just getting all of the students to respond. And I think I said this, whenever we go back to this and we're teaching something new, it's really important to be explicit in that instruction. Sometimes things just go awry and we're like, oh my gosh, did we just like not do this? But really, with those core responses, if we're teaching this for the first time, it's not gonna be pretty the first time. So we have to just give it a little bit of time to practice, teach it, model it, practice it, reinforce it. So we're going to teach our students what the expectations are, give them opportunities to practice, and then we'll really put it into play during our lessons. I see what you said there, Rebecca. Where the students would respond on paper, something they learned. That's a great thing to do. I mean, honestly, like sometimes the reflection part of it, like for me even, is really hard. And I'm like, oh wait, what did we just talk about? Like, I don't, like just now, I mean, honestly, I just asked you, I said, did we just talk about like the teach, model, practice, reinforce? See, like even I forget. So like really having those opportunities to reflect on what has been done and really share that with the team is so important, because then it helps remind us of what they got from the lesson, and remind the other students as well. We have those think, pair, shares. I feel like that's like a pretty easy one. We're thinking about it, we're pairing up with a partner, maybe we're sharing out with the group. Maybe it's a retell. Maybe it's a retell of the content. Maybe you're using some sort of graphic organizer where they're able to just like put their responses on there. We already talked about the think, pair, share, maybe explaining the process or strategy to the class. If they're coming up and they're doing something on the board, to kind of like teach that while students are doing that with partners, giving everybody in the group an opportunity. Reading or writing with a partner or to a partner. And then sage and scribe. This is actually a really neat one. This will probably be for those students who would be able to meet, who are ready to be working like as a partner independently without the teacher. So when we're doing a sage and scribe, so we would have one student who's doing all the writing but couldn't do the talking, and one student who's doing all the talking but can't do any of the writing. So really, one student's thinking like, oh, I don't really have to do anything because that person's writing for me, and vice versa. But really, this gives them the opportunity to um, to practice verbalizing what their skills are. So for example, if I'm working with a friend, and I'm in charge of the writing part, they're telling me what to do. If it's a 2 plus 3, they're gonna say, okay, put down the number 2, and then you need to put the plus kind of like at the bottom next to it. And then on the right below the number 2, you need to put the number 3. Okay, then you're gonna draw your line. So kind of like that. It doesn't have to be with math. It could really be with anything. It kind of lends itself to math because we're able to work through the process for that. But if you need more information, I'm glad to do it. I also have a resource on the Padlet for you to give you a little more information on that. Now, here's the fun stuff, right? Like these high-tech opportunities to respond and engagement. So there's lots of different activities on here that I have for you. I'm going to quickly go through them. If you need more information, I'm glad to share that. Or some of these actually I have not used, honestly, but they've been ones that have been brought up within our like our PLCs and within teachers that we're working with too. So like I looked some stuff up, but like YouTube has all kinds of great tutorials on how to use them as well. But I do have a list of these with links to them on the Padlet. Our first one is like an oldie but a goodie, which is a Kahoot. I'm guessing maybe everyone has used a Kahoot, but really it's where students would, it's an interactive game, students would complete to answer the question first on there. So it's, they have a certain amount of time and everyone has to respond to the question. I really like Book It. This kind of like takes over the Kahoot for me because it allows students to work at their own pace. It's still a game model. There are lots of different types of games you can use on Book It. And they work at their own pace. And if they get a question wrong, it's going to show them that question again. So they're getting multiple opportunities to respond correctly to that question. So I think that's a really fun one. CurryPod, we were just taught about this actually a couple of weeks ago. It's actually AI powered. It helps create interactive lessons. I actually created this one here, this exploring personification in literature for a teacher. And it was just really cool to see how it just like generates whatever I needed in there. It also has opportunities for students to like for example, one thing we did was we had to create a drawing. So every student in the class would have to draw, maybe it was like the leaves are dancing in the wind. Each student would have to draw a picture of what that looks like, and then the class can vote on the one they like the best. So this is a super cool website to kind of check out. Quizlet, another oldie but a goodie. I've used this a lot in my class. I use this to create flashcards for students if they needed it for like, science or reading or social studies or whatever. And they can get on and they can just go through the flashcards and they can practice together or by themselves. It also has an option to create an assessment. So you can do like a quick multiple choice test or matching test on there. So that is a really good site. Boom cards, another really fun one. So this is digital task cards that can be created or purchased. So students can go in and it's more interactive for them to do. I would use this actually whole group within my special ed classroom. So students would be able to participate together and respond frequently. Aha slides, they just have all kinds of different polls, quizzes, features on here that you can really use within the classroom. So that's worth checking out too. GimKit. Steve Jake was going to talk about GimKit. I don't know about it. He's like, oh yeah, I love it. I can talk all about it. I don't really know a lot about it, but I've heard this is used like elementary through secondary. The kids really like it. Like even some of those older kids are really, really excited about that. You can customize games in there to fit the needs of the class, but this is super cool to check out. Edpuzzle, super fun. I've used Edpuzzle too, and we use this actually for some of our professional development. So you would have to it would be like with a video, you could watch a video and there would be questions put throughout the video intermittently. So students would watch part of a video and then respond to it. Then they'd watch a little bit more and then respond again. So rather than waiting until the end to answer all the questions, they would be questioned sporadically throughout. Animaker is another fun one. I've actually used this. If you see at the very bottom over here on the right-hand side, it says, have students causing disruptions. That's actually me. I don't know if you see I don't know, is there like a similarity? I don't know, but I made this last year for one of the s'mores that I completed. So I put that in the Padlet also, but it's kind of cool if you want to check that out. It just kind of goes through like a little step by step of what to do if you have students who are causing some disruptions in the classroom. But this is pretty fun. Students can go in, or you could go in and even like create your own avatar and make like a little video to teach something. So this would be fun, I feel like, to have students creating their own like their own little video and then presenting it to the class. So it kind of like is another way for them to demonstrate their learning. Classroom screen. I have two more. Classroom screen, super cool. This is a free resource that you can use. It's like a screen. It can be customized with schedulers, timers, polls, noise meters, all kinds of stuff. There's a free version, so you can use it. There is a paid version where you can save the screens that you make. We use this a lot at the IU. We've also had teachers that are using it, and they will create their slides like for the week. So they have everything kind of situated with like their schedules for the day for their students, just to have that visual. And our last one is Plickers. Plickers is super fun. So this is a free resource that you can use. And as you can see on the slide here, there is like on the teacher side, there would be like a problem or a question, whatever it is, you kind of customize it to whatever you want it to be. Each student has an individual QR code. There's a letter on each side of it. They would turn it, like one side is A, one side is B, one side is D, one side is E. And based upon their answer, they would hold up their QR code with the letter of their guess at the top, and you would use your cell phone to scan the class, and it tells you the students who have the answer correct and the ones that do not. Now, it doesn't show the class who has responded correctly or incorrectly, but you can see it, so you're getting that instant feedback very quickly for the students. Plus, it's pretty cool. Some things just to consider, take a look at the Padlet, the other professional development sessions that we have on there. There's lots of different resources and things on there. Select one method, like try something. I would love to hear what you are choosing to try, and I'd love to know how it goes. Say like, oh yeah, I really like that. Or if you're looking for something else, let us know. Jake and I are really glad to, do a little research behind the scenes and share that with you. As we said, model the method for the class, provide practice, opportunities for them to practice. You can have peers model, as we said, and then reinforce the students in the classroom as well. Anytime we're doing something new, we want to make sure they understand what the expectations are. A couple other fun things we have on the Padlet. We have a little we have an article for you to read from Neurologic News. It's just how to motivate students. So it has a lot of good information on there. There's also some information from Midwest PBIS, and they provide a lot of great resources about classroom management, opportunities to respond, creating structure, all of that good stuff. But I put a link in the Padlet for you for that, the engagement opportunities to respond. And then also a link for Project Zero. It's through Harvard University. It's actually really awesome. I mean, you could spend a really long time, I feel like, looking through this website and some of their thinking categories. There's a lot of different activities to get students engaged and involved. So I would encourage you, check that out. And I think that's it. That's all I have. See, Jake was on it to like share some of this information. So bear with me while I find it. Okay, hold on. All right, got the Padlet info for you. What questions do you guys have? Are you girls? I feel like that was a lot of information, but I'm hoping that you're like, oh yeah, I want to try this thing. And any questions?
I just have a comment, Amanda. Nice job.
Oh, thank you, John.
Yes. The classroom screen, I feel is fantastic.
Yeah.
Our Act 89 teachers who go into non-public schools use it all of the time for different purposes.
Mhm.
And the one particular thing that I really like is the timer. They use it for themselves and they also use it for
Yeah.
students.
Mhm.
So it's just to keep everyone on track and just moving from one thing to the next. So I'm glad that you brought up classroom screen. It's a really, really good resource.
Thanks. Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, we're not talking about executive functioning today, but a lot of those skills that our students, I mean, maybe even ourselves, like, I mean, I honestly, like, I time myself, I make myself
Mhm.
lists and I cross those things off all the time. Even if I finish something, I write it down
Yeah.
and cross it off because I like to know that I accomplished something.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's so good for us, I feel like, and for our students. So certainly check that out.
Mhm. Just wanted to bring up classroom screen. That's it.
Thanks, Dawn. Thanks. No,
Yes.
I love it too. We use it all. We use it all the time.
Mhm.
Any questions, Amy or Rebecca?
Not that I can think of. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us. So, all right. Well, listen, if you need anything, reach out, let us know. We are happy to be a support to you. And I guess that's it. So have a great rest of the week. I don't know if it's gonna have like an ice storm near you, but it is near us. So
Wow.
be safe.
Thanks, Amanda.
Sure thing. Thanks a
Nice
lot.
job.